One of the fantastic speakers, but people are less because many people want to sit at the home and comfort watch live, and I think they're enjoying the thing, but they don't know they are missing a good snacks what has been served today. Warm welcome to each one of you, and before I call upon the speaker, whom we'll be really delighted to hear him this evening along with AVIS in his usual eloquence of moderating. Let me brief you tell about the MMA events. Some of you are new members, some of you are not come to MMA. You may like to choose to come, and not necessarily I'm promoting membership. We already have 7,000 plus members, but do come and enjoy the MMA events, which will be very, very interesting. Now on the 23rd of November, we have overview of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. This is happening on 23rd November at 6 to 7:30 p.m. Same place. This is again Amarchand, Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas, the knowledge partner for this event. Then on 26th of November, again on Monday, we have a talk at M. Bhupati and Co. regarding financial matters. And on 30th of November, we have again panel discussion, evening happening at the same place. We pick up a very important book on which the distinguished panelists will discuss on that. Then on December 4th, we have an interesting event, Power of Parity, Advancing Women Equality. Now, this is an event where the McKinsey done a worldwide report, the McKinsey report, which they studied, where they found the contribution of women towards empowering, not for themselves, empowering the nation, contributing GDP, contributing in terms of work, is much, much lower when compared to all other nations. What's the reason? What should be the solution? So we have an excellent panel. Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, the Vice Chairman of Cognizant, former Vice Chairman of Cognizant, Vice Chairman Emirates of CTS, he is going to be the speaker, chief guest. Plus, we have got an excellent panel moderated by Satya Sriram, who is Head of Marketing and Strategy of Hindu. Then we have a panelist, Prashant Vasu, Senior Partner from McKinsey, Soundarya Rajesh, founder of Avatar Group, done some phenomenal work in the place of Flexi. Then Sumati Srinivas, the founder CEO of Twilight Group, and she's again a socialite and done a lot of work for women empowerment. Then Shashi Washwala is from McKinsey. She will make a presentation on the entire outcome of this, and please do come, and some of the people who have come as a guest, you're also most welcome to come and attend. This is a nice event. It's happening on 4th of December at MMA, same time. Then on the 8th of December, we have again lecture, Creating Innovation in the Field of Navaratna of Innovation, that is thinking tools on how to use them. We have Rekha Shetty, who is MD of Far Star Distributors Network, and this session will be chaired again by C.K. Ranganathan. C.K. Ranganathan is Chairman and Managing Director of Cabin Care. Again, he's done phenomenal work in the field of innovation, especially chick innovation, chick shampoos. And CKR, MMA is very closely connected. It's a past period of MMA. We also do a major innovation event along with Chennai Innovation Award, where 1,400 people attend this event at Kamarajarangam. So please do come. We'll have an opportunity to interact with CKR and listen to Rekha Shetty. It's happening on 8th of December. Then on the 12th of December, we have an FCDR, MMA cares. We have a seminar for startup in the evening. That's evening from 4 to 8 p.m. There's a nice seminar followed by some award to startups. We are getting some phenomenal speakers, including a central minister. Central minister, I don't tell the name till it's really, really confirmed. In fact, even if you confirm, till he lands and comes in, till he climbs the steps and comes in, nothing is uncertain. So it's going to be a nice, interesting evening. You'll have a nice time. Please do come on 12th of December. Then on 21st of December, we have a talk again by Shardul Amarchand talk. Then on 30th November, we have a book reading session. These are all the things what we have planned for December. And in January also we already planned. I think we'll keep it till December. New Year will start with a new event. And coming to today's event, very, very interesting. Always what is curated by AVIS is always an outstanding event. He is one person who is passionate. We are indeed privileged to get connected to him and do events after event. We are doing, I think very soon we'll be touching into a Silver Jubilee event. And sorry? Next year, not very far, another 2 months only. The empowering common leader, empowering entrepreneurship. Today we have one of the fantastic speakers, and I obviously introduce him. But I was very delighted because I read about him in the newspapers. The person who is contributing to the society, especially his own community, is very important. Because I belong to armed forces, we contribute very significantly to our own community. We don't spare anybody, at least sit in the evening, at least have a drink, because that's a common between the community of armed forces and Anglo-Indian community. They'll always try to sit in the evening, have a drink, and many things happen over a glass of wine or glass. So let me, ladies and gentlemen, put your hand to welcome Harry MacLure, and he is an editor of Anglo in the Wind, and is also a filmmaker, designer, and to chair and moderate Mr. AVIS Viswanathan. May I request Harry and AVIS to come onto the stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause to come. You must switch it off.
Check. Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. The technology, I think we should have artificial intelligence for this mic. It should give, I think take away our intelligence and work automatically. Let me have the privilege of introducing AVIS. AVIS doesn't need an introduction because his introduction is very, very long. I want to cut it very, very short because if I read, I have to keep reading because what he has made is profile. AVIS is a happiness curator, author, falls like rose petal. He is also the principal and co-founder of Workplace Happiness Firm and the AV Initiative. AVIS Viswanathan, the happy wala. This is what is his profile. All AVIS, over to you now. I'll take it there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Am I audible? Is this coming on the system? Yeah, the back? Yeah? Okay, thank you. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this this wonderful evening with Harry. I'm going to be in conversation with Harry in a little while. I just want to first thank MMA and Group Captain Vijay Kumar and his team for helping us host this series. They support us so unconditionally, and it's always delightful to be at the MMA at this state-of-the-art facility. We must also thank Cyclone Gaja for making this happen, because for some reason it has taken a little longer to hit the coast, and it appears to be drifting away. That's not very great news for Chennai, but we'll still get some rains over tomorrow and day after. So that kind of sets the context for the evening in terms of who we need to thank for getting us all together this evening. Let me spend a little time very quickly on why we do the Uncommon Leader series, because many of you here are perhaps not aware what the Uncommon Leader series is all about and why we do it. The Uncommon Leader series is about people who are outside the corporate or management space. They're outside of the regular business space, but from whose life we can glean leadership lessons which are useful in the management space for business leaders, for management students, and for entrepreneurs. A lot of what we are sharing today, Harry, what we're going to be chatting about is being web streamed live to many centers of MMA. It will also go up on YouTube and will be available for a lot of people who wish to catch this video later on. So that's really what the Uncommon Leader series is all about. Leadership itself is very fascinating. Leadership is about knowing what needs to be done, which many of us know what needs to be done. But leadership is truly about getting down to going and doing it. And that's where the uncommon leaders that we showcase in this series make a big difference. They embrace an idea or a cause, and they go to work on it. And when they go to work on it, we've often noticed, and you'll see that in Harry's story as well, that they have phenomenal amount of ownership of what they're doing. They have a clear vision of where they're going. They are driven by a set of values that they never compromise on, and they are powered by a higher purpose. So it's not just about making profits and money, but about doing something very, very meaningful. That's why we do the Uncommon Leader series. When I say we, I must introduce my soulmate Vani here. My soulmate Vani and I, we form the we of our unit, right? And we curate the Uncommon Leader series because it's part of our life's purpose of inspiring happiness. We have an interesting story. Check us out online. You will find that we've been enduring a very interesting, crazy phase in life, which has been marked by long spells of worklessness and pennilessness. We are going through and enduring a bankruptcy for almost 11 years now. But the most positive side of this experience has been that it awakened us to the power of happiness. It taught us that happiness must not be postponed. We must learn the art of being non-worrying, non-frustrated, and non-suffering. When we learned this art ourselves, we decided to go out and share our learnings with people, and that's how I wrote my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal. That's how we started doing life coaching. We run a workplace happiness firm called AV Initiatives now, and that's also how and why we curate interesting conversations in public spaces in Chennai, centered around the theme of inspiring happiness. Now, there's something common between inspiring happiness and the uncommon leaders. Happiness is a personal choice, and if you employ that choice, you are demonstrating personal leadership. Leadership is knowing what needs to be done. What is life all about? It's a limited period offer. So you have to live this life in its lifespan. And what's the best way to live it? Be happy. So if you choose happiness over everything else, by learning to be non-worrying, non-frustrated, and non-suffering, that itself is a sign of leadership. And the uncommon leaders that we have encountered, whom we have showcased in the series, including Harry's story, you will realize, are all people who have been doing what they are doing with a great sense of conviction, with a great sense of belief, and that makes them extremely happy people. And that's why we bring these stories to you. On that note, let me introduce Harry to all of you. Many of you know Harry here, but I'm going to introduce him the way I know him. And that may lend a different flavor, perhaps, to the introduction. So Harry and I and Vani, we go back a few years. We know each other as authors. Harry is co-authored a book. I have authored a book. And so we got invited by a mutual friend at one of these author get-togethers at Sri Kumar Verma's place some years ago. It was a fantastic afternoon, Sri. Thank you so much. And you remember meeting there. That's where we first met. And we got talking, and I kind of understood that Harry is an author, Harry is a publisher, he brings out a magazine called Anglos In The Wind, and I kind of said, oh, an interesting person. I had no idea beyond that. Of course, some people also said that he was a cartoonist and a designer, and I said, oh, interesting, but nothing beyond that. It wasn't until about 6 to 8 months ago, at another of these author events that happened at the Haddos Club, that Harry and I sat down, and we were both not having a drink, but we were having a chat. So I think it pays not to have a drink sometimes, right? It was an afternoon, and I don't drink in the afternoons, so I sat down and I asked Harry, so Harry, what's news? And Harry said, you know what, Avis, I'm making a film. So I also kind of knew by then that Harry made documentaries, so I said, what's this documentary on? He said, this is not a documentary. This is a feature film. You should have seen my surprise. Harry MacLure, the author, publisher of a magazine, documentary filmmaker, making a feature film. I said, Harry, is this a film that will release in a theater? That's the way I clarified my point, and he said, yes. And I asked him, what is the film called? He said, Calcutta, I'm sorry. I was hooked on. And I sat for the next hour or so just listening to the story of Calcutta, I'm sorry. And I came back home. That was one afternoon when Vani was not with me, so I came back home and I sat down with Vani and I said, Mom, we need to have Harry in our conversation. I'm going to Google him up. And when I Googled Harry MacLure, I discovered that here's a man who had survived Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, had spent 3 weeks in a refugee camp in Jordan, lost everything in life when people at that age cannot handle loss, decided upon coming back to India that just the act of being back home was a miracle, was an act of grace, and vowed to live a meaningful life. And that vow within him, perhaps, led him to do multiple things that he is doing now, be in the publishing space, be in authorship as an author, be a documentary filmmaker, be a feature filmmaker very soon. He already is, but the film is going to release in the next several months. And most importantly, hold the grandest event in the Anglo-Indian community, which is the reunion of January 2019, which is the global reunion of the Anglo-Indian community. And all of what he does with a single-minded focus to preserve and promote the culture and heritage and history of the Anglo-Indian community. That's the way I know you, Harry. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you so much.
Is his mic working well? Do you have a problem?
Yeah, thank you, Avis. I'm really honored and very happy to be with you and all our guests.
I don't think we need it now. You're good.
Am I audible? Okay. So thanks so much for having me on your show, and I'm proud to be here. You've given me a big build-up. I don't know why. Anyway, thanks so much.
No build-up there, Harry. Just the way I discovered you.
So basically, I'm as a lot of my community members would know me, I'm very shy on the stage. But you brought me to do this, and I thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Yes, one of the things about the flavors of the Uncommon Leader series is that many of our uncommon leaders are people like you, Harry, who do some remarkable work, but do it very quietly. And we like to explore their life journeys so that we can take away learning. So the way this conversation is structured, ladies and gentlemen, is I'll be in conversation with Harry. I've got a little timepiece, so I'm timing this. You can be sure that this program will end closer to 7:30, around the 7:28, 7:29 region. And for the next hour or so, I will be in conversation with Harry, asking him questions, exploring his journey, and sharing my own thoughts as we go along. And at about 7:10, 7:15, we'll come back to you for a quick round of questions from you, and I'll set the ground rules for the question and answer session at that time. We do have something which has now become associated with me, which is free hugs for all those who stay back and not get up and leave during the Q&A. Okay, thank you for pointing that out, Ramesh. Okay, he said he came only for the free hugs. So was it Ramesh or somebody else? Somebody else said, and that reminded me that I must. That's you there. Yes. So that reminded me that I must make that announcement. So let's get started, Harry. Harry, I've been thinking about it from the morning in terms of how do I start this conversation with you, and I thought I'll start with the most important question, which is why is it important for you to do what you're doing? Which is, why is it important to preserve the history and the legacy and the heritage of the Anglo-Indian community? Why is it so important?
It's a tough question, but see, we are a 500-year-old community, and in Madras, I think we've been there from time immemorial. So lots of history, our personal history, our stories, have not been really recorded very well, I should say. So that's the reason why I wanted to plug that void. And I started Anglos In The Wind. So this is a magazine that connects people worldwide, not only in India, but also in the diaspora. So this is very important to, personally, I think someone should, he wants me to use this, okay.
It's on, it's on.
It's on, okay. Hello.
Is it on?
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Personally, it's a journey for me where I have had to put in the man hours and the courage to bring out the best from within our community, to preserve the community for posterity. So, not that it was not being done before, but definitely not to the level that I was expecting it to be done, because lots of people still have this problem of finding out from others what happened there, or what's the history of, or what's this or that. See, now with the magazine, I was free to dig up stories, talk to people, interview people, and put everything in this magazine. It's a 20-year-old publication, as you know. So to preserve the history of the community is one of my missions. Other people are also doing it, they have done it in the past, but in my own way, I like to do this. And that's why I embarked on this very long journey, and I'll still continue.
So what Harry is answering here is something which is very, very important for all of us at our own personal level. It is not only about the Anglo-Indian community. I think the why of what we do is as important as what we do, the why of it. So when he says that the stories need to be preserved, right? I'm actually hearing you say that if they're not preserved, they will be lost,
yes, they're lost
and disintegrate.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So as I see it, the Anglo-Indian community represents many facets, yes, of our culture and life. Yeah. Like I remember many of the people in the railways came, yeah, were Anglo-Indians. Yes. Right? The best wines were made by Anglo-Indians. Yeah. The people who taught us how to dance were Anglo-Indians. Yeah, yeah. Right?
That's true.
And in some way, many of us always had a school teacher who
an
taught
Anglo-Indian
us
school
good
teacher.
English.
Exactly.
Anglo-Indian school teacher.
There's so many Anglo-Indian schools in India,
right,
and there's so many Anglo-Indian teachers who formed the foundation of many our Indian children and the Anglo-Indians, of course. So I think the railways and the teaching profession go hand in hand. You know.
So there are these many facets to the community itself, yeah, and you felt a deep desire to integrate all of those facets.
True.
And record their history, yeah, through your stories.
Exactly.
That's really what you set out to do.
Yes, and since, as many of you know, Anglo-Indians do not have a state. We are a stateless community, but we are Indians. That's why the term Indian comes into Anglo-Indian. So we belong to Kanyakumari and right down up to Kashmir. So I think we are a unique community. We are small. We are not so small as the Parsis, and my Parsi friends are sitting here, the Belgaum Walas, but we are definitely a dwindling community. But by preserving our culture and history and heritage, I think all of us should have some desire to do that. Not only being an Anglo-Indian, from any community, we should practice this culture of preserving our identity or preserving our history for posterity in the future.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad you said that, not only in reference to Anglo-Indians, but anybody should make an effort. You know, Jim Collins in Good to Great, his great work, Good to Great, which is considered a Bible in the management sector, Jim Collins said, the best way to identify purpose is to ask the question, what will be lost if the effort is not there? So if you put the question to Harry MacLure's life and effort, what will be lost if his effort is not there, then the answer is that the preservation of the Anglo-Indian community's history and heritage and story would be lost, or at least diluted to some extent, right? So that brings us to a very beautiful word which we celebrate in management called purpose. Why are we doing what we are doing? That is purpose. And purpose has got nothing to do with money. It has more to do with bringing meaning to your life. And that's where I'm going to ask you my next question. When did you, Harry, realize that you had to play a role in preserving your community's history and heritage and the story of the Anglo-Indian community? When did you get that call within you?
See, in 1998, I was invited to attend the reunion, one of the reunions that we normally conduct every 3 years, and this reunion took place in Bangalore. And there was a huge gathering there. Lots of Anglo-Indian people from all parts of India and all parts of the world were there. But one thing I noticed was that everyone wanted to know something about not only where the friends were situated, the old teachers, or the family members, or even the history of the community. So there was a void there. I found a void. The link was not there. And I wanted to have a magazine that linked people. And that's how Anglos in the Wind was born. But coming back to your question, I think in 1998 the germ of the idea was put into my mind that I have to do something. Since I'm a writer, cartoonist, and a journalist, I thought I should lend my talent to the community and link them through words, link them through pages, and then that's how it all started.
That was the seed of the idea at that time. Exactly. Okay. Look at his words. I have the talent. I write. I have the connections in the community. I network. And so how can I marry the talent with that network and bring something which is qualitative as an offering for preserving the identity of the community? That's how purpose really arrives in people's lives. It finds you. And I therefore have this question to you. In 1998, you might have been what, about in your 30s?
37, I think.
Okay. So you were, so we're getting to your age, okay? So you would have been 37.
Yeah, that was a nice way of bringing out my age.
You were 37 at that time. You would have been happier in the conventional way to look at life and say, am I building a house? Do I have enough money in the bank? Do I have a car, a couple of cars and all of that? But what led you to start thinking about the community? There must have been some trigger. What was that trigger in your life?
See, I knew when I was devoting so much of my time on the magazine, I knew that it was not money that I was after. It was something beyond money. So I never even dreamt that Anglos in the Wind can be such a popular magazine where everybody is looking forward to it all over the world. So I think that trigger was something deep in me that said that I was chased out of Kuwait and I came here as a refugee for a purpose. And that thought pushed me to doing what I'm doing today, to be with my community, to tell their story and to preserve it for posterity.
See, this is very significant. I was pushed out of Kuwait for a reason, for a purpose. What is that reason? And this question will come only when you pause and reflect on life. If you look at it, what happened in his life, and I have a bigger question there, I'll come back to you. But what happened in his life was when he was saving up for migrating to Australia, was it?
Yes.
When he was saving up to go to Australia, you lost all your material wealth.
Exactly.
Right?
5 years of
hard-earned money.
I was saving it as any other young Anglo-Indian man would think in his mind, okay, I must land up in Melbourne. I don't know, for some reason, a lot of people land up in Melbourne. So I was also under that same,
And instead you came as a
I came as a refugee. I came back to
India, to Mumbai.
Yeah, with only a pair of torn jeans and my passport.
Wow. So imagine that's the way you're planning your life, and then everything gets thrown away, you in a different direction. You would imagine bad times have befallen you. And we are conditioned as society expects us to sit and mope and moan about these things. But it also is an opportunity to pause and reflect, and that's really what he did. And he reflected on what he could do for making his life meaningful. The other words he used was it wasn't about the money. And that's something that we all have an opportunity to learn from him here. Are you living or are you earning a living? If you're living and you're celebrating every moment of it, driven by a sense of purpose, of bringing meaning to what you're doing, then you're making your life count. If you're just earning a living, then you're going to be steeped in a lot of the rat race. You're going to be running the rat race. You will make a lot of money, but perhaps you may be searching for happiness, for inner peace, and for that meaning in your life. So if you change the paradigm, and that's really what Harry did, he changed the paradigm within himself. So at this point, I want to stay with that moment when you came back to Mumbai.
Yeah.
If you look at what you're doing today, Harry, you are, to me, a person who's demonstrated great drive, conviction, a certain amount of adventurous spirit. Who would want to bring out a magazine for Anglo-Indians when the print industry itself is going through a slide down, that sliding spiral, downward spiral? Who would want to make documentary films which are not necessarily commercial value propositions? Who would want to make a commercial feature film with no background in filmmaking in that sense? You don't have a production house backing you, all of that. And who would want to host a Anglo-Indian reunion in Chennai, which requires so much of bandwidth, so much of sponsorship? So you're a risk taker. You're quite fearless, although you don't look that way. Okay, you look very nice, warm-hearted, but you're a very courageous man. So I'm placing current context in front of you, and I'm asking you to connect back to that time when you came back from Jordan after the Kuwait misadventure.
Yes.
You must have gone through fear, insecurity, grief over what you lost.
Yeah.
So my question is, how much of who you are today do you think is contributed by that experience?
I think everything, because when I came back, I should use this word, I came back as a pauper. I had nothing in my hand. I lost everything in Kuwait. I spent 3 weeks in Jordan, along with the countless number of refugees who were around camping without proper food, sanitation, so many problems. And when I came to Bombay, a flight dropped us there, and the first thing that I smelt was rice being cooked inside the airport to be given to us refugees, because we have not eaten at all, rice especially. We have not eaten, just kubus and a cucumber was our diet for so many weeks in, on the banks of the river Jordan. So when I landed up in, with the other people, I landed up in the airport, the Sardaji community were cooking rice, dal and some sabji, and they were giving it to us in the airport lounge. And the smell, the aroma of lovely rice, brought tears to our eyes, and, we just rushed there and ate as if we have never eaten at all, which is the truth. More than 2-3 weeks we were suffering without food and proper water. So then the Maharashtrian government gave us 500 rupees after they looked at our passports and said, okay, you're not from Maharashtra, here's your 500, get lost, go, leave the state, go back to your state, which is, of course, I had a stamp from Tamil Nadu. So with that 500 rupees, I came to India, and that changed my outlook of everything that I did after that.
So everything changed from that experience?
Experience, yeah.
So when you lose everything, what is the state of mind when you lose everything? What was your state of mind at that time?
See, for about 1 week, I was totally blank. I couldn't even think properly. I was not married at that time. And I was supporting my mom and dad. And my family was there to support all of us, including me. But then they were staying with me. My mother and father stayed with me. So I was just wondering how am I going to do, which direction to go. And I hadn't any job, no money. I had to pay the rent. I had to put some food on the table. So, but then I thought to myself, see, I have some talent of designing. I took up to painting. And I did a couple of oils on canvases, sold it to some of my friends, had some money, and then slowly I got back into the groove of working, but as a freelancer. I thought to myself, I shouldn't work under someone or in a company or in an ad agency, which I normally used to do in Kuwait and other places. Then I started doing my own small little business. And I got myself out of that rut. But it only lasted for about a week.
The rut lasted only for a week?
Yes, and I didn't allow it to last for more than that, because otherwise then you can go into depression and so many other problems.
So fantastic that you shared this experience with me, Harry. You know, what he just said is very, very, very powerful. I'll tell you, let me kind of sum it up the way I'd like to do it. First of all, what did it teach you about yourself? How much of who you are today from that experience? And he said everything. And he said he lost everything. He was a pauper when he came. When you lose everything in life, and I underline the word thing, material, you have to celebrate that moment. Vani and I have been through that experience, and I can tell you that the first time it hits you, it's nerve-wracking. It can pin you down, and it can make you believe that you're completely useless. And that sense of uselessness can push you into depression. But if you re-examine your condition and you say, what can I do with what I have, which is your talent? And that's really what we did as well. We told ourselves, we are bankrupt financially, but we're not bankrupt emotionally. We're not bankrupt here intellectually. So let's move on. You decided to paint, I decided to write. You decided to come back and pick up the threads of your life. I decided with Vani to keep walking and keep trying newer ways of putting our life back together. So in terms of an entrepreneur's takeaway here, from the management point of view, all managers, all business leaders, all entrepreneurs, anybody for that matter, requires to employ 3 R's. The first R is reflection. Something's happened in my life. Why is it happening to me? What can I do with it? Reflection. Trigger resilience. Resilience is inner strength. When we are hit by a crisis, we think we can't move on. We can't go any further. Imagine coming back after blowing up all your your money going up in smoke, coming back with 500 rupees and a passport back to Madras must have been numbing, right? So the response to that is resilience. Let's move on. And the third is resourcefulness. Resourcefulness is really the ability to use your talent and create something out of it. And that's really what I heard you say about your painting and selling it to make money, to move to the next level. So resilience comes from reflection, and reflection and resilience lead to resourcefulness, which is making do with what you have instead of complaining about what you don't have. And so thank you for sharing that and triggering this chain of thought in me, Harry. Let me now ask you, so you came back. You were at your friend's party, at the reunion party, and you decided to launch Anglos in the Wind in 1998. Yes. 20 years running a print media product, Anglos in the Wind, which is also now available online. You have an online presence. And being in publishing, so you also have a publishing house called Anglo Inc., and you've also co-authored a book. And all of this is for the Anglo-Indian community, right? How do you manage the part about doing something meaningful for your community and also making it a financially viable effort? You know, how do you balance the two? Is it tough? How have you been doing it for 20 years now?
Yes, it's quite tough because, as you rightly said, see, we have to walk on thin ice. Right from the beginning, when I set out to work for myself, I had to think in my mind, see, I'm not a salaried person. I'm not going to get a salary every month like so many thousands do. So it's going to be an uphill task. And working for the magazine takes up a lot of my time. It's not easy to bring out a full-fledged 44, 46 pager. And that too, as you write, in color, and then apart from editing and packing and posting it, I also act as like a person who helps my staff I sit down with them and label the whole thing and pack and post and everything. So I have to multitask to bring out this issue every quarterly. So it's hard. It's very difficult. It's still difficult, but thank God I have the talent to design other people's books, other people's illustrations, and I work for a few companies that give me, regular work. So that money offsets or defrays this deficit in our monthly budgeting. And yeah, definitely it's not easy, and not many people would want to take this route.
So when you say your design work, you're talking about the Harry MacLure Design Studio. Yes. So whatever commercial work you do for other clients, you use that to subsidize your publishing initiative.
Exactly.
Fantastic, fantastic.
So even though we have a subscription base, but that's not enough to keep a full-fledged magazine running, and there's so much of expenses, the overheads are killing. The postage has gone up these days, printing costs have gone up. So it is very hard.
It is very hard. Yeah. It is very hard. So one of the things I noticed, Harry, is that I'm a person who normally looks for, because I'm a trained journalist and I started my life as a sub-editor, so I do tend to first look for grammatical mistakes, punctuation mistakes, spelling mistakes, and all of that. So the couple of issues that you shared with me, I didn't find any.
Thank you.
And I therefore conclude that Anglos in the Wind is a very, very qualitative product, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But the bigger story is continuing it for 20 years and subsidizing it on what could have been in other ways money that you could have taken home. Yeah. Right? The Harry MacLure Design Studio makes money from client engagements, and you subsidize a lot of the publishing work through that. Yeah. Anytime did you ever feel like giving up? Did you ever think, let's shut all this down? Why am I doing what I'm doing, man?
To be honest with you, every month from the 1st to the 3rd or 4th, I think, it is a daunting proposal to pay salaries, pay the rent and everything. But then again, I'm doing this with no monetary benefit in my mind. So I didn't think of the money angle first. As long as I'm able to pay off all the rents and the overheads and put food on the table, I don't know, unlucky or lucky for Jillian and I, we don't have any kids. So that extra amount of money that we would have had to spend if we had a couple of kids, we utilize it for so many other reasons, including charity.
We'll come to that part, but what I'm taking away here is something very, very valuable for anyone in life, and entrepreneurs in particular, is that entrepreneurship or walking through life are the same. It's like walking on thin ice. And you will not know which pebble is going to trip you over. You will not know that. It's a new, you may think you've crossed this challenging phase, but then a new one will be born. So I can completely relate to that first to fourth kind of period, saying, why am, is there a way out of this? Why don't I just give all this up? But that's where purpose comes in. And he said that also. He said, I'm not doing this from a monetary point of view. I'm doing this for a higher purpose, for helping the community. And then when purpose comes in the way, then even sleep does not come. Thookam kudi varadu if you are purposeful. And that's what takes you to the next point, and to the next month end, and to that question all over again, and then the cycle continues.
So, but I'm very happy to share with you and all our friends here that there is a higher purpose in something that I'm doing. I have that feeling, and every month, without fail, I'm working for myself and for my small little team for almost 25 years now. But somehow some business comes in, somehow the money comes in, and I'm able to pay off all my overheads and everything, and also make a small profit which I keep for a rainy day. It's not that I'm always borrowing money and paying people and getting my the month to be. So I don't know, as you rightly said in the beginning, there is a purpose in me coming back to India. There's a purpose in me doing what I'm doing. And I started to believe that by doing what I'm doing, I'll be rewarded somehow, some way and some day. The bigger rewards will come later, but I don't expect it. But I always hope and pray that my monthly commitments at least are taken care of, and it is taken care of by God's grace.
What you just said now is what life is all about. One step at a time, one day at a time. Have a clear vision. This is what we do. Understand why you do it, which is the purpose. Life only wants you to have the right intention. And when the intention is to serve, when the intention is to be useful, life will always provide the way. This is what we have also seen. I mean, we have survived 11 years of a bankruptcy, and I'm here alive to tell you my story. It's not easy to be where we are. It's not easy to be in an entrepreneur's shoes, but life goes on very, very magically, and that is the beauty of life. So I can totally relate to your fact that somewhere some opportunity comes, because when there is a purpose to what you're doing, life will manifest itself in the way in which you are taken to the next level. Let me now ask you about your filmmaking efforts. So publishing is on one side, you run the magazine, you have a publishing house for Anglo-Indian writers, and you also co-authored the book. But let's move to your filmmaking. There are two different genres of media, right? They're completely different mediums of expression. Right. So how did you get into documentary filmmaking, and how did you train yourself to make a few of those? Already you got a few of those up there on YouTube.
Okay. To answer this question, I have to take you back to a small little railway town. In those days it was small, now it's a big junction. It's called Trichinopoli. That's where I was born and brought up. So very close to the colony, that railway colony that we lived, there was a touring talkies. In Tamil they'll say Keethu Kottai. They used to show a lot of Tamil movies, and on Sundays morning show they used to show a lot of English movies. And I was only 5 or 6 years old at that time. My friends and I would go to that Keethu Kottai. We'll make a hole at the back, and we'll watch these free of cost. But the only problem is we'll always ask each other, why is that fellow eating with his left hand? Why is that sari not like the usual way? Because when you see an image from behind the screen, you know. So anyway, I think that was like a trigger for me to get interested in moving pictures.
Wow.
So I'm not a trained filmmaker, but I read up. When I came to settle down in Madras, I went to the book lending libraries, I went to USIS libraries, went to the British Council Library. That was my second home. So I used to learn the technicalities of not only writing, painting and drawing, but also filmmaking. And those days, when we say filmmaking, it was with film. Now it's all so easy for anyone with this ambition of making a film. It's very easy. Buy a digital camera and shoot. And you have editing software that you can master that as well if you have the aptitude. And you can make a lovely documentary film. That's what we are doing. Richard O'Connor and I have been putting our heart and soul into this project. We've already completed about 7 episodes on the Anglo-Indian community, and we've still got another 5 more to go. So like that, I was drawn into making films organically without anyone teaching me. So I never went and trained under Mani Ratnam or anybody else. I'm happy to say that whatever I've done so far, especially as a filmmaker or a feature filmmaker, I learnt those things the hard way.
Which part of you, I have some observations on what you just said, but so that I don't lose my flow of thought, let me ask you, which part of you responds to filmmaking? Is it your creative side which you're expressing, or is it your purpose side? Because from documentary films you can't make money. So what are you trying to do with documentary filmmaking?
The documentary filmmaking, the vision behind it is again like what I've done with Anglo Inc. and Anglos in the Wind, to document the history of our community. That's what we set out to do. As you rightly said, there's no money involved because we're putting it up on YouTube and thousands of people are watching it, but they're watching it free of cost. We're not getting any monetary benefits out of it. So that's another reason it comes to this, where I wanted to make a feature film where we can sell it to Netflix or some other platform where they buy small budget, meaningful stories.
But you started making a documentary film much before Netflix or the digital platforms that arrived.
Yes, so that, at that time
your motivation was only to document the stories.
Yes, that's our motivation. I think Richard will agree with me. We had no monetary benefits in mind at all. Yeah.
Fantastic.
We just wanted to do this for the community, and one fine day when we are not around, people should, after 25 or 30 or 50 years, they should be able to do research on our work. They should be able to glean how we lived. Because as I told you, we are a dying community. It might take many, many years, but one fine day we'll definitely assimilate into other communities, I'm sure.
Fantastic. There are a few strands of learning here. One is that you can work for money and fame, or you can work for creating something which is valuable, which is a legacy. And he's saying 25, 30 years later, people will come and research on our films and try and understand our community through that. That's what purpose does to you, as opposed to profits. Just being driven by money on one side and doing something purposeful with your life on the other side. Those are the two sides of the story. But there is another interesting learning from what you said, going back to that Keetha Kota in Trichinapalli, where as a child what you do influences a lot of what you do much later in life. And there is a deep connection between life's purpose of making you do what you're doing in your life with what you experienced as a child. It's often happened in many, many stories, and I'm not surprised, but I'm so delighted it happened to you that way, that you're sneaking in and watching films without paying money helped you create so much value out there through your documentary films. So you and Richard do this documentary series, and you do it for just recording the stories. Exactly. So Richard is here? Is he here?
Yeah, Richard is sitting there.
Hi Richard, yeah, the famous Richard O'Connor.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Yeah.
So he's a collaborator with Harry on the films, and together they're great storytellers, as I understand.
We are also short story writers, by the way.
Oh.
I write short stories, even Richard writes short stories and articles.
Wow.
So we are bringing out, by the way, we are bringing out an anthology of ghost short stories, Anglo-Indian ghost short stories. So
There are Anglo-Indian ghosts? Wow, okay. Now, the ghosts have a...
I'm sure it will be a bestseller.
Okay, let's move on. I have to ask you a very candid question. I can understand Anglos in the Wind, the publishing side of the business, the documentary side of the business, not even the business, the documentary side of your life, making documentaries to tell stories. But you know, when Lagan was released, Amir Khan simultaneously made another film on the making of Lagan. And the title of this film is called The Lunacy of Filmmaking. He calls it, Amir Khan calls it the Lunacy of Filmmaking. It's a fantastic film. It's a 2-hour film on the making of Lagan itself. I think it's available on Netflix or Amazon Prime, so do catch it. So my question to you is, don't you realize that trying to make a full-fledged feature film is lunacy? That you can burn yourself trying to make a film that will release in the theaters, and you can char yourself with it, and you come back from one experience many years ago. How are you so daring that you're going into it another time? What drives you there?
See, I believe in something that my friend, the actor Nazar, he said to me one day. Nazar and I were roommates before he could become an actor. We were both working for the hotel industry at that time. He told me one day, he said, if you make a small budget movie with a good story, immaterial of who the actors are, if the story is good and people want to invest their time in that story and with those characters, you can never go wrong. You can sell the film and you can get 10 times more than what you paid. So the thing that we can take home from this small little gem of advice from Nazar is, you make a small budget film and hope that everybody would like it, sell it for a good amount of money, and that's how you can defray your expenses. And another thing is, it's the passion that drives you to make this film. I've always been having this passion deep down in me that one fine day I must be a feature film writer, director. Now I write all my scripts myself. I don't depend on other writers because they're costly. So I write my own stories, and now I've embarked on this directorial debut of mine, and I have a strong feeling that this story would work with the masses, not only in India, but outside India as well.
So the movie is titled Calcutta, I'm Sorry, right?
Yes.
And this is a story of an Anglo-Indian character?
Yes, it's a story of a 60-year-old Anglo-Indian woman who suddenly gets this urge to see her long-lost granddaughter who's missing. So she lives in Kuno, and she wants to go to her granddaughter and say that she's sorry because she has not met this girl at all in her life due to some problems that she had with her daughter during her pregnancy. So the whole story is it's a drama and also a road film. It's a combination of both a drama and a road film. Now when I say a road film, it does not mean that this 60-year-old Anglo-Indian determined woman who wants to go to see this grandchild of hers who's been missing in her life for many, many years by bus or train or by air. She takes her old trusty bicycle and does this long journey from Kuno to Madras and from Madras to Calcutta.
So that's the film. That's the film all about. That sounds fascinating. So you take your passion and you're making a film with it, telling your story very powerfully, as your one-line script is making it out to be. But I'm seeing a learning here from an entrepreneurial point of view, which is that when you quoted Nazar, you said that if you have a good product, okay, and you know how much it is going to cost you to make it, and if you're confident of selling it a little over the cost price, then you're doing a good film.
Yes.
correct? That's the summary. And that's a very pragmatic entrepreneurial approach to filmmaking, and I'm glad you're seeing it that way. So that's a learning. So whatever you do, especially if it's a commercial venture, money is not bad. Money is extremely important, and so it's not that we can live our life only on purpose and we don't need money. In a real world, you need the money. You need to bring in the pragmatism that Harry is bringing in, and that's what good entrepreneurs do. So thank you for sharing that learning with us.
A small little, what you call it, a kind of take-home thing, is that when I put together a crew to work on this, it was only 5 or 6 of us, but highly skilled people, and even the actors were very good. So one thing I made it very clear to them was, see, this is a very small budget film, and we may not be able to give you 5-star treatment. So we hired small rooms from, in Ooty and Kuno, where we shot the first segment, which is about 20 days work. And also I told them we will not be able to give them, good lunches or dinners or breakfast. But all of them, when they read the script and they liked it so much, they said, no problem, even if you give us 2 idlis in the morning and 3 idlis for lunch and 3 idlis for dinner, we are happy, but we want to work on this film.
That's a fantastic point, and I'm glad you brought it up. The greatest role of an entrepreneurially minded person is to be able to sell the vision to the team. If your team cannot believe in what you're creating, you cannot move forward. And that was, in fact, going to be my question. How did you attract a team to make a film of this proportion? Because who are you? Who is Harry MacLure in the filmmaking business? If you went to a film school, if you know some people who are your colleagues, who are cinematographers, who are music directors, then you can assemble a crew. But you are none of that, right? You're a self-taught filmmaker. So sharing the vision is extremely important on the journey to making something remarkable. We really hope this film does very well. It sounds very exciting as a title, and I'm a big-time consumer of cinema. Both Vani and I, we watch a lot of films. Calcutta, I'm sorry, sounds very, very seductive, if I can say that. So thank you for sharing that. Let's move to another thing that you're doing currently, which is the Anglo-Indian Reunion. There sits a man, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. He does 600 plus events in a year, sir. 600 events in a year, roundabout. So for him, it's a part of a process. They have a well-oiled process. In fact, I was telling him that someday I must have him here in the Uncommon Leader series and talk about how do you make 600 events happen in a year on clockwork precision with nothing going wrong, That's something amazing. But he's got an organization, he's got a team of about 15 people with him, and he's been doing it for years, and he's been trained in the armed forces to bring that sense of rigor and discipline. To put together an event, a global event in Chennai, you and your small team of about 5-6 people, how did you even think you can pull this off? What has gone into visualizing this 7-day spectacle that Chennai is going to see? And what can we learn from it? That's my question to you.
Actually, when I first started Anglos in the Wind, for the first 3 years, I was feeling that, we're missing out something. We're just starting this magazine. Everybody seems to like it. But then I went one step beyond. I wanted to have Anglo-Indian shows, like dances, concerts, seminars. So then I started doing every year without fail, at least 2 shows we'll put together. So even a couple of years back, we had a very, very nice Anglo-Indian Christmas ball at St. Bede's Auditorium. It went off very well. So this experience of mine motivated me to say yes when the proposal came for us to run, this mammoth event here.
How big is this in terms of scale? What are we talking about?
We're talking about 1,500 to 2,000 people coming from all parts of the world. Okay. And we're putting them up here, we're giving them transport, food, and organizing all kinds of events related to the community.
And not all of it is happening in one venue.
No, no. In fact, every event happens in a different venue.
Wow.
Yeah. And so far, I'm happy to share with you that wherever we went and knocked, and people were willing to open the doors and give us, things that we wanted. Like for instance, Richard is a Loyola College product. We went and approached a professor there, said we wanted to use the Loyola College, one of the halls, for the Anglo-Indian photograph exhibition that we are planning. He said, yeah, I'll talk to my rector. So when the rector came on the scene, he said, no problem, let them use it. So we've got the hall free. Then we went and approached an Anglo-Indian hotelier who runs a very big hotel in Chennai. And he said immediately, I am going to supply 300 lunches free of cost for you for this event that's happening in Loyola College. So like that, we are getting people who are coming forward and helping us either financially or in so many other ways. They're helping us. So yes, I agree this is a mammoth task that I've taken on, but I've got a small core team who's putting in a lot of man hours, and their time and thought and their intellectual property is coming to, the goodwill that's coming back from the community to us is immense. So I'm glad that I've taken it on as a challenge, of course, and I'm able to continue working for the reunion, which is going to take place in January 2019.
Which is 6th to 13th January.
6th, we start off with a lovely Anglo-Indian hockey match, and then we end up with the one thing that the Anglo-Indian community really loves to do, that is to dance, the grand ball.
Okay.
On the 13th.
On the 13th. So that's fascinating. I think it's an event which is still unraveling itself and will happen in due course. But what I'm picking up is that when the right intention is there, then people come into your life and things happen. And that intention comes from that higher purpose, which is to do something for the community. So that's fantastic. Let me ask you a little bit about your own effort through your design studio. I think at Starbucks when we had coffee the other day, you were telling us that every month you provide a grant to people who are deserving people in your community to sustain themselves. It's a small amount, but you still feel like doing something.
Yes.
Now, I have a very practical question, Harry. You have a design studio which already subsidizes your publishing business, perhaps phrase some of your costs in terms of making your documentary films and all of that. And then you also want to help the community by giving deserving people a grant. Now, where does that thinking come from, and how do you pull it off every month? For how long have you been doing this?
See, the thing is, about 6 or 7 years ago, I wanted to go beyond being just an ordinary magazine that links the community together. Because I know for sure, like in Calcutta and in Bangalore, here in Chennai too, we do have less fortunate Anglo-Indian people who need help. So I found that there was a situation where the associations are doing work, but not enough. So I wanted to contribute something from my side. So I started off helping 6 less fortunate Anglo-Indian people in Chennai with 500 rupees each from my pocket. And that went on for some time, for a couple of years. Then from 6 it went to 12. Then when it reached 20, word got around, not through the magazine. I have not publicized this at all in Anglos in the Wind, and I don't intend to do it. But word got around without us beating the drum about it. A couple of friends from Toronto, a couple of friends from Melbourne, all Anglo-Indians, they started chipping in. They started sending me some money. So with their help and my own something, we put together, and today I'm happy to share with you, I'm helping 55 Anglo-Indians with pensions.
Fantastic, fantastic. So this is something that now has become a collaborative community effort.
Yes.
I think the learning here is that if we are deeply driven by an idea, a cause, we must take the first step. And in our taking the first step, others will join. I often quote the example of Gandhi, where purpose is concerned, where missionary zeal is concerned. We find it so difficult today to articulate what needs to get done with our teams, in our neighborhoods, in our country. But Gandhi did a lot of this in a non-WhatsApp era, with absolutely no connectivity with people through the media. And he did all of this for getting together 300 million Indians focused on one purpose, which was to rid the country of British rule. And I think that there is a huge lesson which is still relevant today. With so much technology, with so much ammunition by way of communication medium that we have, I think we can do a lot more. And then again, it comes back to that intention. If your intent is pure, somebody will step in. And that's what I'm picking up. This is amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you, when the time you want to quit, when you feel that I can't handle this anymore, or it's, have I not taken up too much on my shoulders? Like I often go back to Vani and I tell her, what the hell is going on in our life? Why are we doing all this? And why are we not being, why are we not getting what we need, which is sometimes work? Why, there's no money, what do we do? So I go through that battle, and I'm sure you must be going to Jillian, you both must be sitting down and talking sometimes. What inspires you to go on? How do you go on? The next day, how do you get back to your office and start the work again? How do you go back to your film and start work again? What are your sources of inspiration?
See, one thing all creative people must understand is that there is no destination that we are going to reach in our lifetime. It is always a never-ending journey. So we have to go on traveling till in our minds we think, okay, it's next year, 2019, this journey is going to end. Or 2020, this journey is going to end and we're going to reach our destination. But I think that's not a right way to do things. You have to enjoy the journey while going to even finishing a project like my film, or continuing the work that I do with Anglos in the Wind or Anglo Inc. But somewhere along the journey, we have to identify someone younger with a similar vision where we can hand over certain things to that person and then continue with our retired life and then, of course, eventual death. So I think the journey is what you should concentrate on and enjoy it, rather than saying, okay, I'll reach the destination and then enjoy myself.
Fantastic. This is amazing. This is what, thank you. Thank you. The audience loved your point. The journey is the reward. This is what Jalaluddin Rumi also said. The journey is the reward. There is no place to reach, nobody to impress, no destination to be attained, no wealth to be taken away. The journey matters. The journey is the reward. And so profound, Harry, that you look at it the same way. So the inspiration is that when you feel you cannot go on, you enjoy the low of that journey. No journey is going to be completely a walk on a bed of roses. There are going to be thorns, like when you're flying, there is going to be a turbulence and you have to fasten your seat belts. There will be times when you will need the oxygen mask, and there will be times when you will feel like throwing up, right? These things happen, and that's part of the journey of life. So enjoy the process. And there's a very famous Ilayaraja song that comes to my mind, which is Marutha Vechava Thanni Uttuva. That is the song. It's a very famous song, Marutha Vechava Thanni Uttuva. And I interpret that song as trust the process of life. If you have been given an idea and you are pursuing that idea, in his case, it's what he can do in his lifetime with preserving the history, the legacy, the story, or identity of the Anglo-Indian community. If you've been given the idea, if you've been given the opportunity, the means will follow. And until it happens in the way you visualize it to happen, keep plowing on, keep soldiering on. That's That's really what I'm picking up. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. We are at that point where we can take questions from the audience. So I'm going to time these questions. Please keep your questions as questions. If you have something to share about Harry, you love him so much, and you want to share something about him, you keep it for later. But here, ask him specific questions so there can be short and specific answers. Yes, sir.
I have a small question. See, the journey is a profound one. You started with 0, and I take it and also assume that you have reached or almost nearing the circle. So once the circle is reached, you have made a partial mention of handing over the baton or carrying on the torch further by choosing a person. Have you thought of some mechanism or a structure which will carry forward indefinitely, sustaining this momentum?
Fantastic question. Go ahead, Harry.
I think all of us who have started something in our lives, meaningful something, we always need to stop and think how we can hand this over to someone younger and how we can groom that person to take over and continue our life's work. So by giving it to a person who you can trust and you can feel that within you that this person is capable of doing this, and he can follow what we, the foundation that we've already laid. So it's very important for anyone to identify and get hold of a person or persons to take this legacy forward. I believe in that, and we are doing it with youngsters. I'm working with lots of youngsters. Even the film that we are shooting, we have all youngsters behind the camera working with me. I'm the only guy, and many of them call me uncle on the sets. So, that sort of thing. So that we work with youngsters, and we know that they have so much of energy and positive energy that we need to, only thing is we need to identify who is good at what and steer them in the right direction.
So have you found that person or the team of people?
I am in the process of, yeah.
In the process. Who was the next question? Yeah, Vardharajan, just give me a second. I remember something that relates to what he said and what he asked, which is when we do something with a deep sense of purpose, then what usually happens is, how many ever times the thread is pulled out from our hands and thrown aside, somebody will always come forward to take the baton. This is something that's so true of life. And you will see that in sooner than later, because the cause is more powerful than all of us. What we are doing as human beings is part of acting up to a larger design. And the design is more intelligent, more compassionate, more giving than we can even imagine. Right? Yes, Vardharajan.
Thank you very much, Harry. We are in a large country, we all know, and we have the majority people, we are minority, and you don't even fall in the minority, in the definition of the minority, what we call. So you actually may feel left over, maybe discarded. So it's very difficult not to work in your community, but to work in a community which is surrounded by the majority. So how did you basically challenge yourself to overcome this, setback, so to say, that you are in a lost world here itself, in our own country, where you don't have many people of your own, and still you have to come together, and then it's more of emotional, more of. How did you manage to do that? What thought?
That's a very powerful question. That's a very powerful question.
Thank you.
Actually, it's only a guesstimate. It's not even an estimate or a proper, what you call the head count. But the guesstimate is that we are about 120,000 or 130,000 members within the community here, in India. And outside India, we have many more, but then they've flown the nest. They've settled down there, they're happy with their lives there, but they still consider themselves Anglo-Indian, and I'm proud to say that. So, but coming back to India, we are a small bunch of people, and of course we are a little more than the Parsis. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Belgambala, but you all are only about 55,000 people in India? About that much. Okay, so we've got an edge over you guys. So anyway, what I'm trying to get at is, even though we are small in numbers, but we have contributed immensely to the Indian mainstream. You look at railways. My own father was a railway engine driver, and I'm sure many of the Anglo-Indians who are sitting here will have a railway connection. We have Mr. Roy Rosario, who just retired from the railway as an officer. Oh, you're going to retire, okay. So like that, if you line up about 10 Anglo-Indians, 8 would have been from the railways or from the telegraphs or teaching profession, or so many other, but they've contributed positively. And the goodwill that they've earned from other communities is immense. Even here, sitting and talking with AVIS, it's the goodwill that our community has earned. AVIS knows about the community. Even though we are just a microscopic minority, but we know that people respect and regard us as one of the good communities in the mosaic of India. Did I answer that correctly?
I think it's a very powerful question and a very powerful answer, delivered with complete humility, as only Harry can. In a country where now saying I belong to this community is a sign of bravado, it's a sign of strength, it's a sign of supremacy and all of that. To come to a point where you're saying I'm 1.3 lakh in 1.3 lakh and 1.3 billion people, okay, and yet I don't think any of us can discount the impact that the Anglo-Indians have made in our lives, the constructive, positive impact. So absolutely fantastic answer there, and I think we must stay with that impact, and we must believe that this like the Parsis, like any other community, they are goodwill communities. I mean, they've not punctured the ethos of our nation with religion, as is sadly happening now. They've built it with goodwill, and we have to retain that spirit of goodwill. Amazing. The last question for the evening, sir. Yes.
Hi. It was wonderful listening to you, Harry. My question is, apart from Anglo-Indian community, did you get any opportunity to any service outside your community? If not, do you intend? How?
Do you serve outside the community? That's the question.
Yes, I do. I mean, I can't, in Tamil they say, Ganithu Tavalai. That means a frog in a small little well. No, we are not like that. We are definitely, reaching out to other communities. We are working with other communities. And wherever we are, whichever state we are in, we learn the language. Now, see, I can read and write Tamil because I studied in a school in Trichy, and in Trichy they speak good Tamil. And and I'm sure some of my cousins are born and brought up in Lucknow, and they speak Shuddh Urdu. Apart from our mother tongue being English, we have adapted, and we want to be part of the mosaic. We don't want to be alienated from other communities. We want to be part of, the Indian community. So I think to answer your question is, Anglo-Indians are there. They have their distinct culture, they have their distinct heritage and their features and everything. But we are also Indian.
Fantastic. I want to add here that, to just build on that question, I think the question was also, do you serve outside your community, even professionally? Of course, the Harry MacLure Design Studio does work for a lot of people. I've noticed people whose bylines are there in the magazine who are not necessarily Anglo-Indians. And so I think there is a lot of collaborative effort over there. So it's, while the large part of the work is centered around the Anglo-Indian community, I think the talent of Harry and his team is available for everyone to use. Yes, of course. Right? Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do a quick wrap and hand it over to Group Captain Vijay Kumar. We are nearing the close of this fabulous conversation with Harry. You know, I've often reflected on this, and as the last question was being asked, I reflected on it one more time. If you understand life, you will conclude that you cannot understand it. If you sit and think of life, you cannot understand it. That's the truth. Koi samjha nahi, koi jana nahi. That's the truth. So you come with nothing and you go with nothing. So the gentleman's question there, you started with nothing and the circle will complete at some point, and Harry, you, me, all of us are going to go with nothing. So life intrinsically does not have meaning. It's pointless. How stupid is it? You're going to come with nothing and you're going to go with nothing. So why are we laboring over? What are we fighting over? What are we claiming as mine and yours and all of that? Yet, in this lifetime, we have an opportunity to bring meaning to our life. So life itself is meaningless, but we have the responsibility and the opportunity to bring meaning to life. Hearing Harry, I am reminded of a beautiful couplet, and it's an Urdu couplet. Those of you who understand Hindi will understand it. I'll translate it for the others, but that's what's coming to me right now. It's by a great Urdu poet, Allama Iqbal, who also wrote the very famous, iconic song, Sare Jahan Se Acha. So, Allama Iqbal says, खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से ये पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. Make your work so powerful, make your creation so meaningful, so unputdownable, that before the next destiny is written, the Creator pauses to ask you, tell me, who do you want to be created as? What do you want to do? That is what Harry is doing in his very quiet, unstated way. He is working in a manner in which his work and his purpose are living for posterity, for generations of Indians, not just Anglo-Indians, for generations of Indians to benefit from, and many of the people that have collaborated with him will stand guarantee for that. Richard, S. Mutaya, your team at Anglos In The Wind, and all of them, and me too today after this conversation. It was a very profound conversation. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now invite Group Captain Vijay Kumar for his closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, AVIS. Ben, as usual, fascinating evening. Because being in Air Force, I come across brilliant Anglo-Indian officers as my colleagues. Some of the best fighter pilots are Anglo-Indians, and I know Denzel Killer, you know, the 1965 war, Veer Chakra. And I also had pilots, I was a major air show coordinator. They put me in deep trouble because they're happy-go-lucky guys. Many a time they take it easy. I think one incident I'll narrate with you. We are doing a Bombay air show, and we are using Bombay airport, and the civil aviation air traffic controllers are very, very particular about the processes actually. And the MiG-27 pilot, Pete, he was on a lined up for a rehearsal. At the end of the runway, it's around, I think around 12:30 in the afternoon. And I think he told the ATC for a clearance, ATC said roll, and the ATC is giving all the clients, your height, the thing, and you at this level you have to maintain, this is your process. And after he says clear to take off, that's the time. By the time he said, wow, the guy is already up. Then the air traffic controller got so angry. He said, what are you doing? Carry on, I'm listening. Then the guy put a OHR. OHR means Operational Hazard Report. That means you have to ground the pilot, and they don't allow us to use the airfield, and because it's very dangerous. Then I had to go to the air traffic controller and bring him and tell him, you come with me, go to the airfield. And I mean, I apologize on behalf of Speed because what happened, you come with me. 12:30 in the afternoon, the tarmac aircraft is kept, and there's a MiG-27 aircraft, and when you open the canopy, There's no ground air conditioning. When you all travel in the civil aircraft, where the air conditioning there, you are comfortably sit there. There's no air conditioning. You have to keep the canopy open, and by the time, when the engine start, enter the runway, put the canopy off, and then by the time the air conditioner start working. So I made this air traffic controller sit in the canopy. He couldn't even enter the car. He said, "My God, so hard." Now you understand why he took off. And you keep reading out from your book. He can't keep waiting because it's very tough. When you made him understand, you're so happy. And why I'm telling, some of the other pilots somehow manage, but Anglo-Indian, I know a couple of them. I have lots of incidents like that with the Anglo-Indian community. It's fascinating. I have some dear friends, and it's always good to be connected to them, because they're one of the fascinating people. Whatever they do it very fascinately. One day I really keenly observed when you said when you got back, you were totally blank that time. That time you were not married. After married, you started thinking. So you said that time you couldn't think. Because normally after the marriage you think more. I think more. Where we got into? Did you also think that way? Gentlemen, big round of applause to Harry and Pink. May I request AVIS will present a memento on behalf of MMA to Harry. I think my social media head says we must get the feedback for all events. You put a QR code, just scan it, give your feedback, because your feedback is very relevant, very important to us. It'll make us improve or otherwise. And please do scan the QR code, and you can give your feedback. Be grateful. Get back home safely. See you till we meet again. Bye-bye. Good night.